Okay, cool. Let me just connect all this up here. Cool. Quit. Give me a second. I'm really excited to chat with y'all because I geek out about GitHub Copilot a lot. So I hope you're ready. Also, I do a lot of audience interaction, so get ready for that as well. All right, first question to y'all is the other day I wrote this tweet that said, wrote this tweet with Copilot. I want to know from y'all if you think that I just like regularly wrote the tweet or I actually wrote the tweet with Copilot. So do you think I'm like capping or do you think it's true? Give me a thumbs up if you think it's true and give me a thumbs down if you're like cap. All right, cool. We got some thumbs up. So nobody's like skeptical. Maybe y'all follow my tweets and you see it already. All right, next question for y'all is do you think you can use GitHub Copilot to cultivate your engineering career at any level? True or false? True, true, okay. Oh, I finally saw someone that said no. All right, perfect. I love skepticism. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to discuss what is GitHub Copilot for folks who might not know. We're going to talk about how to use it. We're going to explore if you can use it to level up your career. I'll talk a bit about how it's personally helped me, and we'll see if it's true if you can write tweets with Copilot or not. All right, so but before we do that, I'll introduce myself a little bit. If you're like, who's this amazing person? My name is Rizèl Scarlett. I'm a developer advocate at GitHub. Prior to that, I was a software engineer for about 3 years. And I am an advisor, and I was a director at an organization called G Code, which is like a nonprofit that introduces women of color to code and web development. I'm also like addicted to social media, just like a little bit. So if you ever wanted to connect with me, my handle is at BlackRowBytes on most social media platforms, except for Twitch. I'm BlackRowBytes1. I got locked out of my account and I just made a new one. So what is GitHub Copilot for folks who don't know? It's an AI peer programmer that helps you to write code faster with less work. And basically, it can feel like magic. It can feel like it's reading your mind. Sometimes I'm like, how did you know? But I do want to clear the air. It's not a sentient being or anything. It's not magic. Can't read your mind. And actually, I will be honest with y'all, it doesn't always spit out perfectly well written, up-to-date code. I like to be honest with people. So just putting that out there. What's happening, also, sorry, if you're still like, I'm not really sure like what this looks like, I'm having a hard time envisioning it, most of y'all are probably familiar with the Smart Compose feature in Gmail, where you start typing and it has predictive text, like in this image here, where someone's writing to Jacqueline about Taco Tuesday, and they're like, hey, Jacqueline, haven't seen you in a while, and then Smart Compose is assuming the person wants to say, and I hope you're doing well. It's practically the same user experience, but with code. So what's happening is under the hood, GitHub Copilot is drawing context from your comments and your code, and it's suggesting individual lines and whole functions instantly. It's powered by something called OpenAI Codex. Now, you're probably already familiar with OpenAI. It's a research lab, an AI research lab, and they created like ChatGPT, Dolly, but they also created Codex. And for a little bit, I was like repeating that it was powered by OpenAI Codex, but didn't really know what it was. So I was like, let me just dive in a little bit. Basically, it's a model that translates natural language into code. And we're going to play around with OpenAI. Sorry, I'm going ahead of myself a little bit. But basically, it's a version of GPT-3, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3, which uses deep learning to produce human-like text. It's used by a lot of apps like Duolingo. Like, it's not really a new thing, but Duolingo uses it for grammar correction. And the biggest difference between GPT-3 and Codex is that Codex has been fine-tuned for programming. So now we're going to play around with OpenAI Codex on the examples. I get really excited for this part. So I'm just going to go ahead and head over to platform, OpenAI. I'm going to make this big. Y'all are now, I don't want y'all to see all the screenshots I have. My desktop's messy. All right, so first one we're going to do, one of the examples they have is a movie to emoji converter. I like doing this just so you can see like the technology that, like how powerful OpenAI Codex is. So they have a couple of examples for us of how it's converted a movie title into emoji. So at the top, we can see Back to the Future has a emoji. Ooh, I made it too big. Has an emoji of a young man, an old man, a car, and a clock. Let's see what it gives us for Star Wars. And while it's doing that, think of a movie that I can translate into emojis for you. Oh, okay, cool. So it gave us a star and then some swords. I thought it was just going to be the star. I was like, that's boring. Um, but anyone have any movies that you want to try out? Yell it out. Lord of the Rings. I heard Lord of the Rings first. Sorry. Lord of the Rings. But I think I heard Pulp Fiction. Is that right? Okay, I'll try that out too so that we don't feel left out. Let's see. All right, we got a ring and we got a crown. Okay, my precious or whatever. I didn't really watch it, but I know that meme. Okay, Pulp Fiction. Let's see what it gives us. I also don't know what this is. I've heard of it, but I haven't watched this. It gave us a newspaper and like a little camera recorder. Does that look right? Okay, kind of. All right, well, as we can see, it's not always perfect. All right, we're gonna try another one. We're gonna go a different example. I would love to do these all day, but um, there's a mood to color, just like text description into color. So basically, this is me showing that like it can take text descriptions and turn it into code. So this is gonna turn like colors into hex code. So we have the CSS code for a color like a blue sky at dusk, and let's see what it generates. I'm gonna copy and paste this and put it into the Google color picker. Paste. Hopefully it's blue. Yep, that's kind of like dusky blue. Nice try, I guess. I'll try my own. Maybe like, I don't know, a watermelon. That's what I'm thinking of right now. I'm thirsty. All right, let's submit. Okay, and I gave it a trailing space, so I hope that didn't mess things up. And paste this in. That's not watermelon color to me, but you know, it tried. All right, so enough of this one. Let's show like how it can actually write code. So if I was to write a comment that says, write a binary search algorithm in JavaScript, and I submit it, it should be able to create the function for me. Okay, it's adding another comment. Okay, cool. So it added some extra comments. Let's try this again. Why is it doing that? Ugh. I'm gonna refresh. We're not going out like this. All right. Write a binary search algorithm. And here's the thing, it's generative, so it's never going to be perfect. I can't make sure that it does the same thing at the same time all the time. So let's see. If it doesn't work, I'll move on. Okay, whatever. Didn't work. Usually it does. I don't know what happened. But this is what's powering GitHub Copilot, so people are not like, what is going on here? I don't get how this works. As we can see, sometimes it makes mistakes, sometimes it's pretty dead on. All right. So here's a couple of the features within GitHub Copilot. We have the predictive code feature, which is what I've been talking about. You write a comment or you start a line of code, and then it predicts the rest for you. It also has the opportunity for you to view more suggestions, which I really love, because when I first started using GitHub Copilot, it gave me initial suggestions, and I was like, I really don't like these suggestions. So I went to the product manager, and I was like, you know what you should do? You should add like a view more suggestions feature. And he was like, that already exists, Rizèl. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought I was being smart. But basically, when the initial suggestion comes up, and if you don't like it, you can hover over it, and it'll give you like a previous option, a next option, so you can go to the next, or you can click open GitHub Copilot, and it'll show you all the possible suggestions. There's also the Copilot Labs extension. This is a separate extension that comes complementary with GitHub Copilot Access. So some of the things that it has is it allows you to like translate code snippets from one programming language to another. So here we can see that I binary search algorithm, and then I translated it into Python with that extension. It also has the option to allow you to get an explanation of what's going on in a code snippet. So if you've seen something and you're like, what is going on here? It'll write it out for you. So I zoomed in on this a little bit. It says, first, we declare two variables, low and high, which will be used to represent the start and the end of the search, and then initialize low to 0 and high to the length of array -1, blah, blah, blah. Okay. If you're like, this is kind of cool, I want to install it, it's available as an extension in Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, JetBrains, and NeoVim. But also, I know some people may feel a little concerned about it matching like public code. You do have the option to make sure that's completely blocked. I believe it's a 1% chance that it'll suggest public, like suggestions matching public code for you. But if you want it to be like 0.000% chance, you can go ahead and choose that block option. Now you're probably like, these are really cool features. Stop trying to sell GitHub Copilot. Like you said, it will help level up my career. So I'm gonna get into that. All right, so before I go over there, what are some of your goals as a software engineer? I want to hear like 2 goals, I guess. Anybody? Testing, you said? Cool, perfect. And what? Learning new languages easier. Perfect. Awesome. Similar to mine. So whether I'm a software engineer or developer advocate, as long as I'm programming, I want to be able to code faster and cleaner. I want to like, someone gives me a ticket or issue or whatever, and I give it back, and they're like, dang, Rizèl is so smart. Like, look at this code. And she did it so quickly. I want to be able to be a good mentor and mentee. I want to be able to write good documentation. And I want to be able to gain understanding for new concepts quickly. Like, as we know, tech moves fast, and I'm trying to move as fast as it. And I believe Copilot helps me to do all of those things that I listed. And I will show you how. So in terms of coding faster and cleaner, GitHub Copilot's really good at like recognizing patterns. It's like really good, at least for me, like if you're writing an API or leveraging an API or writing unit tests, as someone just mentioned in the crowd. Also, it's good at syntax, right? It removes that need for you to be hanging out in a regex playground for like a whole hour just on one line, or to be like searching the web forever. You just write a comment and it'll generate the regex for you. Also, you get the best results, in my opinion, with writing comments. When GitHub Copilot first came out, people were like complaining to me. They're like, it's not doing anything. I'm like, because you're not typing. Like, write a comment. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about my personal experience. I kind of write messy code. Like that's just how I am, and I always have to go back and refactor it. So when I joined the team at GitHub, I was really nervous when they're like, "You're gonna work with the Microsoft Visual Studio Code team to build an extension." I'm like, "Why would I work with them? I don't even know how to build an extension." And I was super nervous that they were gonna like see my code and be like, "Girl, this is some awful code." But surprisingly, the principal developer advocate at Microsoft emailed me back after I sent it, and he said, code is gorgeous, so easy to read and well commented. Love it. I was like, what? I never heard anyone say this to me before. And like maybe I'm downplaying my skills, but I also do think GitHub Copilot helped me, because I wrote comments and I leaned heavily on GitHub Copilot to help me to use the API for the VS Code extension, because like I really wasn't familiar with it. Here's some examples of other people, so you don't have to take my word from it or for it. Someone named Mel Mike Dev on Twitter. He's basically translating the words answer, question, and date into different languages just by providing the language code, and GitHub Copilot is generating the rest. We also have me just writing showing how regex works. So I wrote a comment that says validate a phone number. All I'm doing is like kind of tabbing, and it like generated the function. It gave me some test cases, I guess, and then I ran it just to see if it was actually working, and it seemed pretty right to me. And then also one thing that I really enjoy about GitHub Copilot is I think it's great if you speak English as a second language. Like, code is already really American English centric, so it could be really hard to remember like how to spell things and how to use a syntax. I wrote like some comments in Spanish, and it just generated most of the code for me. Like, as you can see in the GIF, I was just tabbing. Okay. Also, in terms of adding snippets to your documentation, I feel it speeds up the process for you. We don't encourage people to use Copilot to write documentation, but people do it anyway, and I low-key think it's a little bit helpful. I'm just saying. But just here's some examples. So we have my friend Hayden Bars on Twitter. He's writing some install prerequisites, and without him even like finishing what he was going to type, GitHub Copilot already put the install command for him. We also have a Microsoft Developer Advocate that admits that half of the documentation for the static web app CLI was written using Copilot, which I thought was pretty mind-blowing. And then it also helps me personally with like confidence as like a mentee or just peer programming with people. I tend to get really anxious when I'm peer programming with people. I'm like, dang, they're like watching me misspell everything. I'm like stressed out. But now I don't have to focus as much on that and I can focus more on the logic. And then on the flip side, when I'm a mentor, I have taught people how to code and then they come back and they're like, I need help with C#. I'm like, I don't know C#. Like what? But I've been using that explain feature or the translate feature to give me more context so that I'm able to help them. Just a couple other things. Oh, I only have 11 minutes. Let's go. All right. So a couple other things is like, I think it's helpful for studying for interviews. Sometimes when I get on Elite Code Hard, all of a sudden I'm watching Netflix or I'm taking a nap. But once I get like stuck or lose momentum, I'll use GitHub Copilot to solve it. And then I'll like read it and be like, okay, that makes sense. I'll delete it and I'll just challenge myself to solve it the way that I want to. But it helps me to keep up the momentum. Also, navigating a new code base, like I mentioned, that explain feature is really helpful if you're like, I've never explored like this code base before, I'm new to a project. And it's also been really helpful with me for demos as a developer advocate. As a developer advocate, a lot of times people like want me to demo stuff on Twitch or whatever, and I'm like, I'm not familiar with this language or this feature. One example is the Twitter DevRel team pre-Elon wanted me to like show Copilot working with the Twitter API, and they wanted me to use Python, and I was like, I don't write Python, like I don't know how I'm gonna do that. But I made a quick demo, and that's just me on Twitter being excited. I don't know if y'all remember like that Usher meme when he's like, watch this. So yeah. So let's write a tweet with Copilot. I hope the demo guys are with me. I'm gonna go into code spaces, which is essentially Visual Studio in your browser. And I already wrote like, you don't have to write this level of detail. I just wanted to make sure the demo goes perfectly. So I already wrote like a high level context of what I wanted to do. I think that's really helpful with Copilot. And now we're just gonna ask it to import the modules. So we're gonna import Tweepy. We're gonna import, I'm also gonna post on Mastodon. And we're gonna import the OS module as well. And now we're gonna connect to the Tweepy client. That's not what I wanna do. Let's see. Cool. So now it's kind of trying to assume how the like API keys are. It's close, but not exact. Cool. Consumer secret key and access token and also access token secret. Also, one thing I want to just quickly add that y'all might not know is instead of having like a config file or a .m file, I've saved my secrets in CodeSpace secrets. It helps because sometimes when I'm doing this demo, I accidentally click the file and then everyone can see my keys. So that's always awkward. All right, so did that. Now I want to authenticate to Mastodon. That's not right. I'm gonna do that. We're doing like basically it's just grabbing the API keys. This is not right either. It's trying. Hachyderm, cool. That's the instance I'm on. And now I want to like create the content of the post. I think I'm gonna say I wrote this post with Copilot, and I'm at React Miami. I'm pretty sure that's what Michelle wanted me to do. All right, so then I'm gonna send this post to Twitter. And it's actually using an older version of the API, so that's not what I want. I want to say create tweet equal, I think it's text equals post. Hopefully it's right. And then also sending the post to Mastodon. This is also not right. Nice try, Copilot. But as we can see, like it's leading me in the right direction, but it's not always perfect. So always like double check when you're doing stuff with Copilot. We want to print the response here, and I'll print this response as well. Response equals. All right, demo gods, show me your magic. Okay, so I want to do Python 3 demo send post .py. And actually, before that, I'm just going to make sure these modules are installed. So pip3 install tweepy, pip3 install, what was the other thing? Mastodon.py. And let's see what happens. We might get errors. I don't know. All right, I think it worked. Let's go to my Twitter and see if it actually did work, or at least I'll go to Mastodon. This worked on here. You could give it a like if you're on Mastodon. And then on Twitter, let's see what happens. Yep, it's right here as well. People already liked it. Thanks, y'all. Cool. I'm so glad it worked. All right, so this is a React conference, and I do have 6 minutes left. So I did take a recording of using GitHub Copilot for React, or actually with Next.js. Because oftentimes when I show this, people are like, oh, yeah, it works for like vanilla Python or vanilla JavaScript, but not frameworks. Yeah, that's not true. But we also saw that, yes, it could send tweets with Copilot. Yes, it can help you to level up your career. And then here's just my example. I'm making a simple like to-do list with Copilot just by writing like comments. So first I'm like setting up the state, and I'm just tabbing. I tell it I want to set up the state for each to-do item as well. So I'll just let y'all essentially watch this. And now I want to like create a function that handles adding each new item. Again, it auto-populates all that for me. I want to create a function to delete each item. It does that as well. And then now I want to go ahead and like render maybe an input, a button. What else do I want to add? I guess like the actual list itself. So I tell it to do that. And there's me I'm just keep tabbing and sometimes adding in a div, like a closing div for it. So I'm gonna try to save it, but I think I had an error where it missed the ending parentheses or paren. So now it's adding the input. I don't know, I'm just narrating. I don't know. Cool. We got the button, and now we're gonna add each to-do list item. And I'll just try it out just to make sure it actually works, because I was like, that was too easy. No way. But it looks like it could add items, and it looks like it can also delete items as well. So moving to the next slide, what if you're like, how do I get these optimal results like Rizèl did, right? Like when I use GitHub Copilot, it's not doing that. Here's the thing that y'all should start looking into. It's called prompt engineering. It's simply the practice of using prompts to get the output you want. And with GitHub Copilot, our comments are like our prompts. So here's a couple of tips. There's definitely way more, but one is like giving it that high-level task description. Like you saw me do with the tweet, or you saw me do with the to-do list. I said like, hey, I want to create a to-do list that adds and deletes items. Or for the tweet post as well, I said, hey, I want to send a tweet to Twitter and Mastodon. So I gave it that like idea of what the program was going to do at the top of the file. Also, providing examples is helpful. AI models often use something called like few shot learning. The more examples you give it, the more understanding it has of like what it's going to output. And then also iterate more. So if you don't get the results at first, go ahead and like delete that line of code it generated and fix your comment, make it more and more specific so that GitHub Copilot knows which direction you want to take it in. So if you wanted more resources and you're like, I'm kind of interested in this, go ahead and check out some blog posts I wrote. I write pretty good blog posts, I think. One is called 8 Things You Didn't Know You Could Do with GitHub Copilot. And the other is like called Prompt Engineering with GitHub Copilot. Y'all might have been taking pictures and I went really fast. Sorry. Okay. And feel free to either scan the slides for the QR code or connect with me. I'll also probably just tweet these slides out on Twitter and then toot them, I guess. I don't like that word, but toot them on Mastodon so that y'all can be able to follow along with this. That is all for me. I feel like I spoke really fast, but thank y'all so much. Thanks for